How we doing out there? So you know me, I like looking at vintage fashion. I like looking at stuff that's kind of like a time gone by. I hanker towards that, kind of a classier time when it comes to fashion. So of course, when Megan showed me this article about crakows or crakows, or otherwise known as poulaines, I was instantly fascinated, and I just went down a rabbit hole and started researching some of the craziest fashion in our history. But first, my name is Timothy Sands, and this is Fashionable Father. If you're already subscribed, thank you and welcome back. And if you're new here, I present content to inspire men to present their best selves. If that intrigues you, subscribe if you're so inclined. So as far as the 5 crazy fashion history items that I want to go through, of course, the first one is crakows, or as otherwise known as poulaines. I think that's how you pronounce it. Now, these crazy shoes are, they were like around for an entire century. Now, at first I was totally shocked by that, but as I went down this rabbit hole, I realized in our history, things actually did last usually a century long, because that's how slow fashion actually moved. It would start in a century or in the middle of a century and then end in the next century, but usually the height was in the middle, right? Yeah, these lasted from 1340 to 1430, so nearly a century. And pretty much all the fancy noblemen wore them. Actually, pretty much everyone wore them at a certain time. And they were up to 5 inches long, the tips of them. And it was, of course, to show off their masculinity. It was something really cool. They actually were wearing a lot of tights and hose at the time. That's what men wore. And they would want to be showing off their ankles. So that's another thing. They were really minimal. So that's right up my alley. The ones that were 5 inches long, those were worn by noblemen to show that they didn't have to do any work per usual, because, the men of leisure, that's where it's at. And they wanted to show off that they weren't working, because you literally could barely walk in these shoes. That's how ridiculous they were. I think the reason these things fascinated me so much is, of course, they were so gregarious. And also, it was the first time that the fashion for men was actually more flamboyant than women's fashion, which obviously is rare in any time in history. So that's pretty cool. They were, of course, at a certain point, I think in, 1430, I think they were outlawed by the king because they were just too much. And I think what they alluded to also was a reason why they were outlawed. I think I, again, am fascinated by them just because of the gregariousness of them. But yeah, this was a thing for a century, up to 5 inches long. I mean, can you imagine wearing a shoe like this? This is insane. Okay, up next is Oxford bags. That's right, these are pants, ridiculously baggy pants that started in the 1920s. Now, what's kind of cool about this is these are actually making a comeback, as you well know. Harry Styles is wearing them, and the Europeans are hitting this a little harder. There's kind of an allusion to old man pants, the high-waisted, slightly baggier pant, but these were obviously very specific to 1920s and having an extremely wide leg. Now, I guess they came out of Oxford, the University of Oxford in England. Supposedly, knickerbockers at the time were outlawed on campus, and the kids still wanted to wear knickerbockers. So supposedly they started wearing these ridiculously baggy pants to wear over their knickerbockers, just to, stick it to the man and keep wearing them. But some historians actually say, no, more likely they actually came from the rowing team at Oxford. They were wearing them as warm-up pants over their shorts. And of course, they're wool, they're super loose and comfortable. And as usual, as it got trendier, the legs actually got wider and bigger to an excessive point. And then actually they came over to the United States, got super trendy, and then everyone was wearing them. There was multiple reasons to wear them. Of course, they were super relaxed and comfortable, but also even sometimes gangsters would be wearing them because you could hide stuff in them. But yeah, stuck around for a long time. They were very specific. And again, what's pretty cool about them is 100 years later, they're actually making sort of a comeback. So that's pretty cool and crazy per usual. All right, This one, these are detachable starched collars. Now, right off the bat, when I found this, I was pretty excited because I think those are cool. I think they're actually really cool to wear a starched collar that's super stiff. And it was just a collar, like, and it would like just be pinned. But they would starch them so heavily and they would be so stiff, they would actually cut the neck sometimes. So for some men, when they're wearing them, it would be so thick, it would cut their neck. And then on top of that, they would wear them so tight that it would actually kind of cut off the oxygen to their lungs. And if they fell asleep in them, or even fell asleep, like more importantly, drunk, some men died from asphyxiation. Can you believe that? They were actually called father killers. But again, fascinated by this because I like the look. I like how it's stiff. I like how it's super starched. It's got this kind of like very presenting mindset, you know what I'm saying? But I love the look. I think it's cool. And I love that men would wear them to a point of such severity that it would cut off their oxygen and maybe even cut their neck. I mean, that astounds me. Oh yeah, late 1800s is when they came around. 1800s, I think I don't think it moved into the 1900s, maybe a little bit, but mostly I think it was late 1800s. So up next is not directly fashionable, but it does have a lot to do with design and aesthetic. And I always have found this fascinating. I knew about this actually a long time ago, but the tulip bulb market of 1600s, or no, it was most importantly, it was basically the height of the tulip bulb market was in 1637. And the tulip bulb was introduced to Holland in the 1500s. And the Dutch went crazy over it. They loved it, and they became certain colors became very rare and also sought after, to the point where people were trading tulip bulbs for value, buying and selling them. And at a certain point, it is supposedly recorded that someone paid the same price for a tulip bulb as they would pay for a house. And I guess the market got crazy and got so nuts that it finally ballooned up in 1637. And then like overnight, the market fell out and people lost a lot of money, supposedly. Now, of course, there's record of it being like this mania and people got super rich and lost it all in one night. But I guess true history is saying that it was mostly just the rich people traded tulip bulbs like whack jobs. But anyways, it's a cool story, and what I love about it is the fact that it has to do with the aesthetic value of something that, in a sense, is useless, right? It's just the admiration of it and the love for the item that created value. And then it got out of control because people actually were trading it for value. But I love the concept of it. I love that someone would find just a certain specific color or design of a tulip bulb and tulip bulb. Tulip bulb, not a toilet bowl. Anyways, yeah, and find the value in it, right? Up last, and certainly not least, that's right, codpieces. Can you believe that? Men actually wore these for, again, almost a century. And yeah, wore them without shame, right? This is something I don't think even modern culture and our freedoms, this is crazy. The concept of putting this in front of your junk is nuts. Now, of course, at the height of it, they were extremely profound, and large. And Henry VIII is the most famous for wearing the largest codpiece, especially his armor had this ridiculously huge thing attached to it. But it all started supposedly with because pants weren't really a thing, at least not amongst the people in the cities. They weren't wearing pants; they were wearing hose or tights. And so the material that actually joined the two legs of the tights was this like triangular piece, right? There's one thing first is the tunic got shorter, so the tunic started to get shorter, but your junk was kind of showing, so that had to get thicker. The material had to get more layers. And then on top of that, they were wearing belts at the time with swords and such. So, we needed a little more protection because you didn't want your junk to get hurt, right? So things wouldn't run into it. And so the material got even more thick. And then since it was on display, they were like, oh, hey, let's make it even bigger to show off our manliness. And it just got bigger and bigger and more profound. Again, remarkable that this was okay. One of the philosophers actually mentioned this. I can't remember the philosopher, but he mentioned, he's like, wait, we don't talk about our junk in public. We actually shy away from this completely, but we will adorn it with decorations and show it off and bolster it. Interesting. But yeah, I guess codpieces, I think initially was the material, and then material added to it. And then I think eventually you just tied it. You know, like you took a thing and tied it to your waist. Anyways, codpieces. Can you believe those things existed? So yeah, strange times in our history, in crazy fashion history at that. And I got excited about this. I thought, hey, this would be awesome to share with you guys. I hope you got some laughs, and also were fascinated by some of these interesting things in our history. Well, my name is Timothy Sands. This is Fashionable Father. If you've been watching this long, you got to like the video, right? And also, if you watch this one, I think you're going to like this video right here. This has to do with my top 5 fashionable cities. That's right. If you like lists, I got them here. You can take a look at them. But yeah, enjoy that. And always remember, never forget, style first. And you know I got to do it. See you on the flip side.